Welcome to Recovery His Way. I'm Tom Reynolds, and I'm joined today by our special guest, Emily Cooley. Emily is a volunteer. We've been talking a lot about volunteers and people who are coming on our campus kind of not as a job, but as a way of getting involved and kind of growing and learning personally. And Emily's kind of coming at us from a little different background. We've had a number of people in the community volunteer, but Emily is a grad student from Auburn. And she contacted us and wanted to do an internship with us. And so she has joined us with our case management department and kind of our counseling side of things, helping to work with the guys. And so, Emily, welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to have you here. I know it's been kind of an interesting start because I know you got started briefly and then COVID kind of came through and then we've had bad weather and it's been kind of a crazy little start, but we're glad you're with us. I guess I wanted to begin by just hearing kind of your story, just kind of, what your background is, obviously educationally, how you've gotten to the point of being interested in something like what we're doing here at His Way.
Yeah, so I actually grew up here in Huntsville, and I had a pretty typical, normal, happy childhood. Went to high school, and I grew up always a believer, grew up in the Baptist church, everything. So I've always had a relationship with God, I guess you could say. Definitely went through all those struggles of high school and college and the distractions and that kind of thing. But really in high school, college was also when my relationship with God kind of, while it challenged me, it also is what grew me and my relationship with Him and kind of got me to where I am today in my relationship, in my walk with the Lord. So that side of it, and then the education side of it, I did a couple years here at a community college in Huntsville, and I kind of didn't know what I wanted to do. I always really enjoyed working with people with disabilities. So I was kind of thinking like special education teacher. Wasn't really sure. Grew up in a house of all teachers pretty much.
Okay.
My mom, my sisters, all teachers. So that's kind of what I was following for a while. I've always known that I wanted to do something that made a difference in somebody's life. That was just always the main thing. And then when I got to Auburn, I decided that I was going to go to occupational therapy school. Realized that was not for me. So then I changed to nursing, realized that wasn't for me. Kind of the same little repetitive thing. And it was always very apparent to me that wherever I was never really just like comfortable at peace with where I was, like in my college courses, in my major, where I was trying to go with my career. It was never really working. So I had to spend I really wanted to go to nursing school for some reason. And, but I had to kind of sit back and spend a lot of time in prayer and Lord, where do you want me? And He opened a door for me to switch my major to rehab and disability studies at Auburn, where I was in, so I was in that major, wanting to go back on the OT path. Anyways, so I ended up graduating with that, and I was like, well, I don't really know what I want to do now because the OT door was closed, but I was starting to get ready to graduate from my undergraduate program, and I started working I got the opportunity to go to Tutwiler Prison for Women down in Wetumpka and to do some volunteer type work there with Auburn. And from the first 10 minutes I was there, I knew that I had been placed there for a reason. It was just such a crazy experience. It was very different than anything that I had been around before. But I just knew that was the Lord telling me, this is what you're going to do.
Is there anything particular that happened that kind of clicked for you? You said like in the first 10 minutes, maybe it felt like you just belonged there. It felt like something happened.
Yeah. It was a lot of, because at that point, I remember it really well, just being so unsure of what my career, what my future, kind of what like my purpose was, just as a person, as a college student, somebody about to graduate, and also as a believer, what my purpose was here on earth and for the kingdom. I didn't know, but I knew that I wanted to make a difference. And so being in there, it was just such a calming peace, I guess you could say.
I mean, that's an odd thing to say about a prison.
It is, yeah. It very, like I said, different. And so but like you said, it's very weird to say that about a prison, but I've never felt so just at peace with where I was at, I guess. And
what was your role there? What did you end up doing in the prison?
So initially, when I first went in, I was doing just some polling with Auburn. We were contracted through the DOC and the DOJ to do some research, and I'm actually still doing that in my graduate program now. I've gotten to do a lot of research and presentations and that kind of thing, doing that side of everything, just kind of like the treatment in the prison and how things are going there with the women and whatnot. And then, so my last semester of my undergrad, I had to get an internship, kind of like the one I'm doing right now for my graduate degree. But this was a couple years ago, and I was just searching and searching and searching for an internship and couldn't find anything. And I interviewed 5 or 6 places, and just every door was closed until literally couple days before I needed to have a placement. I was just sitting there on my computer. I'm like, Lord, I don't know what to do. Like, I've applied, I've interviewed, nothing's working. No one can take me. So I ended up I remembered being in the prison and seeing these women in teal shirts. I was like, what was that? Like, what were they doing there? And so I just remembered the name of the nonprofit. It was the Alabama Prison Birth Project. And I was just like, I'm just going to look them up, see. Realized that they were based in Auburn, where I was, and I filled out an application for an internship. The director called me a couple days later, set up an interview, went, interviewed, got the position for an internship. And what that nonprofit does, they go in with COVID, it's been different. But before COVID, they go in every Tuesday, feed the women, the pregnant women at the prison and the postpartum women. And they serve that population. And they provide a doula, assistance. They just serve that it's such a vulnerable population. Like these women that are pregnant in prison, they go to the hospital, give birth, no family, nothing, maybe 24 hours with their child before they're separated and come back. So they kind of provide that support during the pregnancy, during the birth, and after for that postpartum period. So I worked with them for a few months, and that was probably like the most life-changing, eye-opening experience. And that was when I really, really knew that this is what I wanted to do. So,
well, I mean, it's quite a jump then. I mean, obviously you contacted us at His Way about interning here for your graduate degree. So going from a women's prison and the interest in that, and particularly with the birthing process and dealing with women in that, to coming to an all-male residential addiction recovery facility. How did you find out about His Way? What got you interested in trying to do this? What particularly did you think this would be kind of a good fit for me and what I'm trying to learn and grow in? You know, what brought you here?
Yeah. It was kind of a similar process. I was applying for all these different just internships, trying to find something, but I knew that so my kind of a backstory on my grad program, it's a rehabilitation counseling degree, which is also working with people with disabilities. But I decided there was an opportunity for me to do this program, and I had kind of found a way to apply what this program is to what I want to do with the incarcerated, justice-involved community. So I ended up going through that, but most everybody else in my program is working with people with disabilities, vocational rehab, that kind of thing. So it was very hard for me to find an internship that I could use. I could meet my requirements for my program, but also do what I wanted to do full long term. So how I found out about His Way was I was just kind of scrambling on the internet, trying to figure out something, looking up different places in Huntsville that were kind of involved with justice-involved individuals. And I ended up talking to somebody, one of my mom's coworkers, and she had a relative who had gone through His Way. And she just told me about it. I was like, I kind of heard about it, but it's all men. Like, it's all men. Like, I can't do that. And she's like, well, just apply. Like, it's a faith-based program. Like, it was great. So I did. And it was very like, I was just like, there's no way that I can do this because I've only worked with females. And this is a huge, going from females to all men, that is a huge jump, like you said. But I applied, and y'all called me a few days later, and I came in and interviewed. And after I left my interview, it was just kind of that overwhelming piece again, from the same like feeling that I had when I walked into the prison for the first time. It was that same piece, like God's saying, hey, this is what I want you to do. I know it's scary, I know it's uncomfortable, but this is where I have you.
How have you gotten involved here? I mean, obviously just joined us recently. What have you found the places to plug in?
Yeah, so I've been able to plug in a lot of different ways, which has been great. I've kind of learned about all the different moving parts that are here, the administrative side, the case management, the counseling, the programming. I mean, there's so many different pieces here. And so I've gotten to experience all of those in different ways. I've actually started kind of brainstorming, helping with some recovery plans, a little bit of like a more detailed recovery plan, action plan, kind of, I guess, counseling meets recovery in a way, in the programming and everything, and talking about goals and setting goals and everything is something that I'm really passionate about, is helping people figure out goals, set goals, and then an action plan to kind of go out on and how to maintain those and everything. So I've gotten to kind of collaborate with other staff members on that, which has been really fun. I've been totally pushed out of my comfort zone doing that. And then also just working with all men in general. It's stretched me, but grown me already in just the few weeks that I've been here.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting environment. Obviously, you got men here whose one of their biggest challenges is dealing healthily with women. That's not something they've typically dealt with well. A lot of the damage that they've had and a lot of the destructive things have happened because of interacting with women and the ways they viewed it and the ways they've handled it. How have you found yourself even being treated here? Do you feel like uncomfortable? Has this been an uncomfortable environment for you, or how has that gone?
That was one of my biggest fears coming in, of course, but I mean, I've been proved completely wrong. Everybody here has been so respectful toward me, and my place here. I mean, everybody's just been so welcoming, I guess, and
Well, one of the things that's interesting to me too is obviously, as you mentioned, you haven't come from a substance abuse background. You haven't lived in it. You didn't grow up in a family in it. You haven't struggled with yourself. And so coming to this, what have you learned or what have you discovered just about understanding the whole substance abuse side of this? Because maybe as you move forward, that's going to be obviously a piece of what you're going to have to deal with in some of your career paths that you're looking at.
One thing I've learned, there's just so many different things that contribute to a person's substance abuse. It's not just the substance. It's their mental health. It's the family dynamic. It's employees or work status. It's background trauma. All the things. So in the prison community and working with the women there's a lot of substance use going on. Right. It's probably contributed to the reason that they are incarcerated. So it's just kind of everywhere, and a population that I'd like to continue working with, maybe if not directly, then indirectly, like in my work at a prison or in reentry, that kind of thing.
I know reentry, you mentioned the word reentry. I know that's kind of your real focus, at least what we've talked about in terms of helping people re-enter, leave prison and get back into the into civilization, into the free world effectively and successfully. That's obviously one of the challenges we face too. I mean, even though our guys go back to work fairly quickly and are involved in the world, we're still coming back here, they're still being accountable here. And so it's kind of a mixed environment. And so, but obviously we have to get them ready and prepared for going back out and living with their families again, or going back out and getting that job and having their own vehicle and managing their own resources and that type of thing. So, I mean, I think that's a really important thing. One of the things I love about the fact that you have a passion about it and that you're involved with this is that you can help us do better with that. And one of the things that, I mean, I think we've grown in a lot of ways as a program, but we're always looking for better ways that we can do what we do, because we do have a passion for trying to really help everybody have the best shot at success. What are some of the re-entry things that, you know, you've been focused on, that one of the things that you see, maybe things that in your research or in your preparation for this career path you're on, that you think is really critical in helping people be successful in re-entry?
Yeah, so in my program as a rehabilitation counseling student, one of the things that we focus on are job skills, resume building, just all of those things that contribute to getting and maintaining a job. And for a lot of the men here, or anyone that has been like largely involved in substance use for a long time, I guess, they might not have finished an education or been able to obtain the job skills that are required for a good job that they can support their family with. So that's one of the main things coming here that I have been looking at and focusing on, trying to learn more about, of how y'all do things here with the jobs and job readiness, and kind of trying to figure out how I can contribute to that, and just getting them back on track for a successful job. That
it's interesting because everyone's in a little different place. We got everything from, you know, young kids that don't have really any job skills, some guys who are older who have never done anything really of substance other than just have a minimum wage job to make a few dollars, to people who have had, you know, really successful careers and got derailed and trying to get back on those tracks or find another path. So it's interesting how different people end up here and how they end up needing to get back to where they want to be. I guess just in closing, I appreciate you being with us today, Emily. I mean, as you look at, you know, the next few months at this internship and that kind of thing, is there anything particularly that you're excited about learning or growing in, or anything in particular that you're kind of anticipating in the future?
I'm just right now just so excited to be here and have this opportunity. And I'm constantly, like I said, learning new stuff every single day about his way and about the men, what they go through, addiction, everything. I guess over the next few months, I just want to continue growing and learning and being pushed outside of my comfort zone, because that's when we grow the most, I think. But I really just, as I continue in my career advocating for people like these men and the women that I work with in Tutwiler, anybody, all of these individuals have kind of been given a label: inmate, addict, alcoholic, etc.
Right.
But I think it's so important to remember that that's not their label. Their label is a child of God. That is their label first and foremost. And so I think that's the most important piece to me, is to remind others of that in the community, but also remind them of that, because I think that gets really lost on them. And just being able to remember their identity in Christ, and they might not have even ever been told about it before they came here. So I think using that piece of ministry, but also just being there with them, walking through, because this is them being here is a huge step, but it's also really hard, really difficult. So I think that's just the main thing that I want to do, is just remind them that there's hope, that the hard story and the good story can be the same story. But yeah.
All right. So. Emily, thank you for joining me today, and thanks for joining our team. I'm looking forward to what we have to do together in the next few months. It'll be great.
Thanks.
Thank you for viewing today. If you're interested in knowing more about His Way, you can check out our website at hiswayinc.org.